All right. What I was saying was this is the link to the slides. Let me paste it for everyone. Is emojis a new feature? I suddenly see them on Zoom. I didn't see people use them before. All right. These are the link to the slides. Let me share my screen. Today, we are going to learn about some React concepts that you wouldn't need for a simple application. You would see them in a complex code base, or if you ever become complex, your code base becomes complex, you will use them. They are definitely asked in interviews. I talked to Satyam before this class. He was asked two of these questions that I'll share today. Specifically, if you've heard of the use fetch custom hook or the use previous value custom hook, rarely do you need them. In my React journey also, after 2 years, I had a specific use case where I had to create something like the use previous value hook, which is what we learn today. And then a bunch of other things that were asked to him during his Zepto interview. To recap, this point to this point is done in offline videos. We had React last week live, but the first live video is still decent. Second live video was too slow. So I wouldn't recommend you go through 9.2. I would recommend you go through 9.1, then go through the offline videos that I posted, 9.3 and 9.4. Skip 9.2 basically, just a very ad hocish stream. People did not understand use effect, became very long. After you're done with them, then you should probably go through the things that we're going today. That's point 15 to point 19. Let's start off with the poll as always. How many of you already know this? Do you already know routing in React, layouts in React, building a website? Oh, well, this probably might not happen today, but we'll try to build something like this. These guys are also hiring. So I thought, why not clone their UI? They're trying to compete with PW, whatever. So they're hiring aggressive. I wouldn't say aggressively, but they have like a 200 people team in Bangalore now. So let's try to clone their front end. Maybe not today, but in an offline video or otherwise. Today we'll go through single page applications, routing. I'll take you through this website and show you where routing comes into the picture, and then use ref and custom hooks is what we learn today. Without any further ado, let's do the poll. How many of you already know this? Do you already know this? A lot of smart people this time. Oh, well, slowly trickling down. So 34%, that's great. So, feel free to drop off or, if you want a challenge, trust me, or don't trust me, either way. But like building projects is the best way to be ready for when you get that interview or, when you're being asked for a referral. So try cloning this. It might help. And without any further ado, for everyone else, for the 65%, let's kick things off with single page applications and routing. Again, if you have not gone through React, it will be a little hard to understand all of this. All right. First jargon for the day. Single page applications. Let me recheck if we are recording. We are. All right. Single page applications and routing. What is this thing called single page applications? Why do people say, okay, use React for SPAs, use Vue.js for SPAs? What even are SPAs? Single page applications are web applications that load a single HTML page and dynamically update the page as the user interacts with the application. You will see this on most websites today. If I show you the Allen website, let me practically take you through what I mean. I open this website and most probably, now there are ways to not load all the HTML upfront, lazy load basically, but let's assume they don't lazy load, they have not done those optimizations. What a single page application means is that I opened this page, some HTML, CSS, JavaScript came, and then as I click on these pages, if I click on online programs, notice the route has changed. Notice the route has changed. Notice the front end has also changed a little bit. As I go back to the home, route also changes. Front end also changes, but the app bar remains the same. The content somehow changes. The biggest thing to notice is as I click on these pages, there is no loader that comes over here. In the top bar where Allen is written and there is an icon right next to it, there is no loader coming over here. But if we build websites like we have until now using HTML, CSS and JavaScript, when you navigate from one page to another, you refetch the HTML of that page. I repeat, अभी तक हमने जो HTML लिखा है, whatever HTML, CSS, JavaScript we wrote until now, front-end applications we created until now, if you would go from one page to another, you would resend a request to the backend. If I open the network tab and show you, in a naive application, in a non-single page application, in a multi-page application to say, if you click on a page, you will see some HTML come back. Here also it is coming back, which is why I said I don't know if these guys are using an SPAs. Most probably they have lazy loading, which is why, you see, oh no, this is just, yeah, they have lazy loading, which is why, or, they use server side rendering, which is why as I switch pages, most probably they use Next.js then, or even if they use React, as I switch pages, some request is going out to get some data. This is still a single page application. I repeat, this is still a single page application. Why? Because as I'm clicking across various pages, there is no loader that comes over here. I am not doing a fresh fetch from the backend. I am not fetching everything again. I might be fetching some things as I go from this page to another page, class 11th. I might be fetching some HTML. Here, yahan pe HTML might change. Top bar remains the same, but some HTML below changes. So I am fetching some HTML, but I am not reloading the whole page. I am not refetching the HTML for the top bar. So as you go from one page to another, it is not like I am asking for a new HTML page. I am asking for some extra components ke yahan pe kya hai bhai le aao. When I click over here, this part comes from the backend, but the app bar HTML remains the same. That is why it is called a single page application. Ke bhai page to ek hi hai. There is a single HTML page initially. As you go from one page to another, the HTML below changes that may come from the backend, that may be loaded the first time you open the website. The first time I open the website, tabhi shayad HTML of this page might also come from the backend. HTML of this page might also come from the backend. If you have done some right optimizations, if you have done lazy loading, what does lazy loading mean? कि यार अगर आप यहाँ से यहाँ जा रहे हो, only when you go to the 11th page, class 11th page, does this HTML come. Then you still have a single page application, but you have it with lazy loading. So what is a single page application? LinkedIn is also a single page application. If I open LinkedIn over here, as I switch from one tab to another, notice the tab bar is the same. The contents change. The page doesn't do a reload. It is not like I went from linkedin.com to linkedin.com/jobs. I did not navigate completely to a new page. This is still sort of the same page, but the contents of the page are changing. Yahan pe the contents are something else. Here the contents are something else. Page is still the same. The top level HTML is still the same. There is still a single HTML tag. Of course, we are removing some elements from here, adding some elements when I go to this page. So as you switch pages, it might feel like you have a multi-page application, but what you have here is a single page application. Why is it called single page? Because the thing that you see up front is the first page and the only page. उसी पेज में हम HTML बदल रहे हैं. As I move from one this thing to another, we are changing the HTML of the same page. This is great UX. This is great user experience, because if it was not a single page application, then I would be redirected to, abhi I am on this route, I would be redirected to the original page. So ek bari ko I would have seen a white screen. I would have seen a white screen. Here I am going to a new page. Then I would have re-seen all of this HTML. That is a multi-page application or whatever, a non-single page application. But since as I go from one page to another, I don't see a fresh load. I don't see a loader over here. If I go to google.com, do you see I see a loader first? Then I see the fresh HTML. When I go back to allen.in, I see a loader here first. Then I see the page. So that is multi-page applications. And back in the day, you would write multi-page applications. Today, for good user experience, so that as you go from one page to another, this remains constant, this changes, you build single page applications. So today we'll try to learn how can you create SPAs in React. This approach allows for a smoother user experience compared to traditional multi-page applications where each interaction often requires a full page reload. Multi-page application, every time you go from one page to another, a full reload happens. Single page application, some parts of the page change. How can you introduce multi-page applications, single page applications to React? Or more importantly, how can you introduce routing to React? अभी तक हमने ये भी नहीं किया है. We have not even done routing in React. We haven't even written the logic that can take you from one page to another, that can support allen.in, that can support navigating from one page to another. So let's understand first, how can you do routing in React? Once we build routing in React, the thing that we build will be a single page application. So step one, initialize a fresh React application on your side. I'm going to do the same if you want to follow along. Do it with me. If not, that is fine as well. You can just, look at the screen, but I would urge you to try it yourself. So, even though this is simple stuff, until we reach hooks, this is like fairly simple stuff, but feel free to, pick. All right. How do you create a fresh React application if you have gone through the offline videos? For the people who are coming for the first time, you can go to Replit. You can go to replit.com or repl.it, create a fresh HTML, CSS and JavaScript, a fresh React REPL. So let me delete one of my old REPLs over here. Create REPL, React, JavaScript, and just create a REPL. Cloud React environment if you don't want to set it up locally. But what should you ideally do? Ideally, run npm create vite @latest. This will bootstrap a fresh React project for you. I am going to call it week 10 hooks. I should have called it week 10 routing actually, because first we are going to go through routing. Week 10 routing. Select React as the framework, JavaScript as the language, and open this folder in Visual Studio Code. For the people who don't want to do it locally, whatever steps I followed are very similar to what Replit follows when you are over here. So you can also run this React project on Replit directly. You will notice it renders a website over here, or you can start it locally. After you've gone through the commands npm create vite @latest to initialize a React project, given it a name and opened it locally on your Visual Studio Code, then you can run npm install, I repeat, npm install to install all the dependencies. Create vite @latest. This command that I ran does not install the dependencies. It just brings the files to your machine. So you have to first install all the dependencies and then run npm run start. Dev. npm run dev. Once you do, it will start a React project for you. Locally, if I go to localhost:5173, I see a website over here. If you are on Replit, you see a website over here. They are a little different because in Replit, if you go to source/app.jsx, it only renders this much. If you go to our code base, the local code base, you will see in source/app.jsx, we have a lot of custom code over here that I am going to get rid of. Return div hi there. So that even locally, I have a very basic React application where hi there is written on the middle of the screen. Why is it written on the middle of the screen? Why does it have a black background? Because I am using some default CSS from here. If you want, you can go to app.css and remove all the logic from here. You can go to index.css and remove all the logic from here as well. Once you do that, you will have a raw React project, no external styles, no CSS. Whatever is written over here is what you see over here. Same thing is happening on for the Replit folks. For the Replit folks, whatever is written in app hi there is what is appearing over here. There is no extra custom CSS. All of this is recap. All of this is things we have already done in React. So if you are stuck reaching this point, I would urge you to go through the offline videos and understand how React projects are started. What is this app component and how does it work? How does it render HTML on the screen? The first thing we are learning today is routing. What happens right now is if I go to localhost:5173, this app component renders. If I go to localhost:5173/123, the same component renders. If I go to localhost:5173/class11 project, then the same thing renders. So there is no routing that is happening basically, right? What was happening on the Allen website? On allen.in, if I am on the root page, I see this very nice website. But if I go to exams, NEET, class 11th, I reach a different page over here. As the route changes, the contents of the page change as well. Question is, How can we do that in our website, where right now, doesn't matter what route I am on, the same thing is getting rendered. This is where routing comes into the picture. You can write routing logic yourself. What do you have to do in the end? You have to maintain a state variable here and extract this route somehow. And based on what this route is, you're supposed to render a certain component. तो खुद से भी लिख सकते हो. Good challenge to try it out yourself. Build routing yourself. Not too difficult actually. You just need to maintain a state variable. Const current tab, set current tab, something like this. For the people who have gone through the offline video, we have sort of done something like this. So you can do it yourself, but thankfully there are libraries out there that let you do it. The same is true for React Native also. In React Native also, navigation and routing is a very big concept. Routing is even more complicated in a mobile application. There also you usually depend on an external library like React Navigation. So if you want to do navigation in React Native, you use this library. If you want to do navigation in React, the most popular library is npm install react, what is it called? Router DOM. React Router DOM. Notice the name, React Router DOM. It says, okay, this is a router for a website. This is a router for the document object model. Similarly, there might be a library React Router Native that is for routing for a React Native project, a mobile application. React Router Desktop for desktop applications, so on and so forth. I will repeat this again. Okay, React is just a top level library. You can use React to create desktop applications, to create native applications on mobile, to create web applications. Today we are creating a web application. So we are going to install this specific routing library. When I install React Router DOM, it gives me, DOM. It installs this specific library in my code base. Question is, what is the API of this library? How can you use this library? API is fairly simple to understand. If you've gone through the children's section in our offline videos. In our offline videos, there is a section called children over here. If you haven't gone through this, it might be mildly complicated, but you can still, look at it and try to understand what is happening. Step 1 is importing a few things from the React Router DOM. What am I doing? Importing 3 things: browser router, routes, and route. Kirat, what is the browser router? We'll come to very soon. There are various types of routers in React Router DOM. Another popular one is, what it's called, hash router, or we'll look at it very soon. There is another very common router that is usually used in extensions. If you ever create a Chrome extension, you will not be using browser router. You will be using a different type of router. We'll get to what that is. But since we want to create simple navigation like the Allen website, we will use the browser router. We will wrap all of our application inside the browser router. Then we will say, okay, here is where I am defining my routes. Iske andar I am going to define all of my routes. What is a route? Whatever is written after this. This is a route. What routes does Allen have? They have one route called /, which is the index route. Then they have another route called /neat/online coaching class 11. So all of these routes, there will be limited number of routes, right? There will be like 10 different routes. They support class 11th coaching, class 12th coaching, so on and so forth. So all of these routes I can define here. Okay. Now I will use the third import. Okay. Here is the first route. Again, I will have to look at the API. Here is the first route. For the path / let's see, what was the Allen route? /neat/online coaching 11. Render this component. I repeat, this API is slightly important to understand. What are we saying? For this route, please render the blogs component. Have we written the blogs component? We haven't. I should also name this slightly better. Class 11th program. A component like this. Kirat, what is a component? Go back to the offline videos. I am going to define a component called class 11 program where I'm going to return, the HTML for that specific page, for this specific page. This has a lot of things. I'm just going to copy the title for now. And this is my simple class 11 program. Now, whenever a user comes here, they will see this component. And whenever a user, let's say, comes to /neat/online coaching class 12, then I'm going to render the class 12 program or component. That way, I can do routing in my React project. What else do I want? Okay, whenever there is a user that comes on the landing page, there is a better way to do this. Let's do the ugly way first. Okay, whenever the user comes on the landing page, I'm going to render the, let's say, landing page component or landing component. So my application supports 3 endpoints or 3 routes: /neat/online coaching 12 /neat/online closing 11. Return welcome to Alan. All right. Let's see if it works or not. And then we will dive deeper into the syntax. What have I done? I have wrapped my application inside a browser router. Here, I want all the logic inside to run conditionally. I want this to get rendered only when the user is on this page. This to get rendered when the user is on this page. This to get rendered when the user is on this page. Let's see, does that happen? If I go to localhost :5173, I should first start the project locally, npm run dev. And if I go to localhost :5173, notice I see nothing right now because I was on a very random route. If I go to the index route /route, what do I see? Welcome to Alan. I see welcome to Alan over here, which is exactly what was written. Okay, whenever the /route is rendered, whenever the user is on the /route, render the landing component, which is this thing right here. What if I go to /neat/11? Then I see neat program for class 11th. Great. Seems like routing is working as expected. I can go to the landing page. I can go to online coaching class 12, and that is the 12 component is rendering the class 12 component. The 12 route is rendering the class 12 component. If I go over here, I should also write 12th over here. So that way, all 3 of my pages are sorted. I have a single page application. Why is it a single page application? We will see very soon. Here has multiple pages. This is a multi-page application. No, it is a single page application. We will see very soon. Before that, do we understand routing? Hopefully this is simple stuff. Let me recap one more time. What did I do? In my app.jsx, I wrapped my application inside the browser router. I said I want to define multiple routes. These are the 3 routes. For this path, render this. For this path, render this. For this path, render this. I can still write some logic above it. For example, Alan, class 11, class 12. This logic would appear on all pages. There is no conditional logic over here. But whatever is written inside this, that is rendering conditionally. So I can create a common top bar for all the pages. And that top bar will appear on all pages. Niche ka content would change based on which page you are on. Let's do a quick poll and see. Do we understand routing in React? Very basic stuff. We do. Great. 90% I would assume is great. So let's proceed then. Ye to simple laga sabko. Let's see. How can we navigate from one page to another? This I will also have to Google. I totally forgot. I don't think it's in the slides either. But यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा था? What was happening here? I could click on a button that would navigate me to another page. I would click on class 12th. I got navigated to another page. How can I add the same functionality over here? The naive approach is that I make all 3 of these links. Okay, this is the landing page. So I'm going to make this guy a link. When you click on it, you get redirected to the slash or the landing page. This is the second one. When you click on this, you get redirected to /neat/online coaching. And this is the third one. When you click on it, you get redirected to /neat/online coaching class 12. All right. Might look a little complicated, but if I write it like this, hopefully it's easier to look at. This is the dumb way to navigate users from one page to another. This is the dumb way to do navigation. We'll see very soon why this is dumb. What have I done? Added a link over here. When you click on this, you get redirected to the slash page. You get redirected to the /neat/online coaching online class 11 page, the other page. If I go back here and refresh, if I click on Alan, did you see a loader over here for a second? If I click on class 11, did you see a loader over here for a second? When I click on class 12, did you see a loader over here just for a second? Does the same thing happen on the Alan website? यहाँ पे, if I go to the landing page, focus over here. There is no loading that is happening. It is not refetching the full page from the backend. It is refetching some parts. It is fetching some parts. It is not refetching the whole thing. यहाँ पे, if I navigate from one page to another, it is refetching the page. It is the same as me writing 12 over here and pressing enter. If I write 12 over here and press enter, then I am navigated to the next page. This is bad way to do navigation. This takes away the benefits of single page application. You used React. React is a framework where you can do single page applications, but you are not using that functionality. Harkiyat, how am I not using that functionality? Because when the user goes from one page to another, आप पूरा HTML फिर से मंगा रहे हो, आप पूरा JavaScript फिर से मंगा रहे हो. You are asking for the HTML and JavaScript and CSS again. If I go to the network tab, click on class 12th over here. Notice everything comes from the backend again. I send a request to localhost:5173/this/this. It returns me the complete HTML again. If you've gone through the offline videos, you might remember this is our default HTML file. This is our default HTML file which has div id equal to root. If I go to Visual Studio Code, you can see amongst the many files, there is a default index.html file. आप उसको फिर से fetch कर रहे हो. You are fetching it again. Why? The same file is only needed on all three pages, right? So why can't you route in a more cleaner fashion? कि यार ठीक है, पेज को सेम रहने दो. Just render the HTML for class 12. Just render the HTML for class 11. How can you navigate the right way? For that, you will have to use again something from the React Router DOM library. This library will export another thing, which I totally forgot. I will have to Google, or you guys can tell me in comments. It will export another function or hook, which if I call that, then the user will get redirected in a more cleaner fashion. What is that thing? Who will tell me in comments? I'm sure you guys already know. Two ways, links and navigate. There we go. There are two ways to do it. Let's go with the first one, which is using links. This exports another thing called a link. And this says, कि यार ये मत use करो. Don't use the default A tag. Use the link tag. It behaves very similarly to the A tag. I don't know if you have to write href over here or 2. I think you have to write 2 over here. But other than that, एकदम same है. Same like the A tag. Rather than href, there is 2 written over here. Rather than A, there is link written over here. So this link component that you get lets you go from one page to another in a mildly cleaner fashion. Let's see, does that happen? I ended up breaking everything. Oh. क्या हो गया? Inspect console. Oh, you can't use link outside this, I think. Let's see. I don't think you can use links outside this browser router. I think that's the problem. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. You cannot use these link components outside the browser router. We will understand this more when we reach the context API. We will understand this more, even though this isn't a context, but still you cannot use these links outside the browser router. It will start to throw you an error because usko pata hi nahi, it can't, I mean, whatever the reason is for that. We can dive deeper into the browser router and the library and understand, okay, why can you not use this outside? Even though you will see this many times in your React journey, कि अगर आपको एक लाइब्रेरी का कुछ यूज़ करना है, if you want to use something from a library, you have to wrap it inside some component or some context for that library. Same thing we saw in the wallet adapter in Solana. If you're going through the Solana classes, we had to wrap our application inside 3 such components. Only then did it work. So the same thing happens over here. Everything else is the same. I cannot define it outside. I have defined it inside. Does this make our application a single page application now? Let's see. If I go back here and click from one page to another, can you see there is no loader here anymore? Or more technically, if I click on inspect and go to the network tab, can you see no HTML is coming back from the backend as I go from one page to another? Now I have a true single page application. How was I able to make it a true single page application? By navigating using the link component rather than navigating using the A component. That is one way to bring navigation into your system and create a single page application where you can navigate from one page to another. Let me copy this whole thing and paste this in the slides so you guys can copy the same code base locally. This is the code that I have locally present on the slides. That's how you create a single page application. Now, the default code that you saw over here had the components defined in different files. मैंने तो सब एक ही फाइल में डाल दिया. I तो put everything in the same file over here. This is my app component. This is my landing component. This is my class 11 component. This is my class 12 component. I put everything in the same file. You can also structure it better and define them outside. Cool. That is one way to do navigation. The other thing that people pointed out was the navigate function. Now, I don't think that's a function. I think that is a hook. The use navigate hook. There are 2 ways you might want to route a person from one page to another. There are 2 ways or 2 reasons you might want to route a person from one page to another. या तो सिंपल कि बंदे ने क्लिक किया, यूजर क्लिक्ड ऑन इट एंड देन दे वेंट टू अनदर पेज, तो देन तो यू कैन यूज दिस लिंक टैब ओवर हियर और लिंक कंपोनेंट ओवर हियर. यूजर क्लिक्ड ऑन इट and only then did you go to the other page. But sometimes you might want some custom logic. Whenever the user comes on the class 12 page, after 10 seconds, they go back to the landing page. Let's say the requirement is after the user goes over here, after 10 seconds, they go back to the landing page. How would you implement that? In your class 12 program, you can use the use navigate hook. I repeat, you can use the use navigate hook and call it to get a variable called navigate. I repeat, this doesn't give you a navigate function. It returns you a hook called use navigate. Just like use effect is a hook, use state is a hook, use navigate is a hook. Any function that starts with use in React is a hook. You get that function and now you can write the logic. After 5 seconds, take the user back to the original page. Or so that I don't complicate this for people who don't know use effect right now, I can add a button. When you click on this button, go back to landing page. When you click on this button, you go back to the landing page. How can I do that? I can either put this inside the link tag, but we don't want to learn that. We want to learn about the navigate hook, use navigate hook. So I will say on click equal to redirect user. What did I say? Whenever the user clicks on this button, call this function called redirect user. And here I can call navigate with wherever I want to take the user. Let's say the landing page, the slash route. So what have I done? In my class 12 program component, I've added another button. And whenever you click on this button, this function gets called, which navigates the user to the landing page, for example. So if I go back here, click on go back to landing page, notice the route change to / again. I click on class 12, I am here. I click over here, it takes me back to the landing page. Again, a single page application, no loading over here. Okay. Some cases you will need this. Most cases, a link tab would work. You did not need to call the navigate function, use the use navigate hook. You can just wrap your button inside a link. Most of the times that will work. Cool. That is how you create a single page application. Most of the things are done. Some extra things you will learn about in the next slide. But before that, let's do a poll. Are we good to go? Simple stuff, nothing too complicated, nothing too out of the ordinary. इसके बाद 1-2 more things in routing, then we'll reach custom hooks and go from there. Any doubts? Are we good to go? Yes. We're good to go. Yeah, I think 87% is decent. I'll take doubts at the end. Let me try to wrap it up by 9:15, 9:20, 9:30 at max. Then we'll take doubts. All right. So everyone understands this. There are a few extra things good to know of. For example, in Allen, if I go to a random page, what does it say? It says content not found. It has a default 404 page. What does it have? A page that shows up when I'm at a random route. How can I introduce something similar in my React application? I can say route path equal to star. Okay, if none of these routes are met, then render the error page. Where, I can say, sorry, page not found. Of course, we should make it prettier, but I'm catching any route that is not any of these 3 routes. I'm catching that route and rendering the error page. So if I refresh, if I click on these correct routes, I see my application. If I go to a random route, I see, sorry, page not found. So I have a default 404 page. That is one. The second thing to learn was, you can also see it here. So route path equal to star. It's present in the slides as well. This is your 404 page or empty page over here. That's the first thing to learn other than everything we have learned until now. The second thing to learn is layouts. You don't really need to learn this because we sort of have already implemented layouts over here. Layout is a very important jargon for you to know. It will come back when we will reach Next.js. When we reach Next.js, we will relearn about layouts, a sort of a jargon, and good to know. Layout basically means कि यार ये जो Allen का पेज है, the Allen page has a nav bar at the top and then the real content. It has a nav bar, then the real content. It might have a footer as well. It has a footer. So we say कि the layout of this Allen application is, there is always a top bar, there is always a footer, this is the layout, and content in the middle keeps on changing. That is what a layout is. If you want to wrap your application inside some top bar, bottom bar, you say this is the layout of my application, and andar ka masala keeps on changing. The things in here keep on changing. This and this are my layout. They always remain constant. How can you introduce layouts in a page in an application which has multiple pages? Simplest thing is, if I go here, we have already done it. We have a constant top bar. So we already sort of have a layout, constant top bar. And if I want, I can also add a footer. I can also, after all of this, put a footer over here. Okay? Footer, contact us, so on and so forth. So this is the top bar. This is the footer. Content in the middle keeps on changing, but the layout of the page remains the same. So this is one way to do layouts. I would say this is a little ugly because for multiple reasons. I mean, you might have another router in the future. Right now we just have a single router, but you can have multiple routers as well. And in that case, this will get a little complicated. There is a more elegant way to do. Oh, I'm about to run out of battery here. there is more elegant way to do layouts in React, or more specifically React Router DOM, and that is all of your routes you wrap inside another route. कि यार अगर the path is slash, or it starts with slash more technically here, then this layout needs to be present. I don't have the code for layout here. Let's try that out. What do we say? Okay, when the path is, this actually might be wrong. I mean, I just copied it and may or may not work. Let's see. If not, we'll figure out what's the right way. What did I do? These were my original routes. And I said, इसके ऊपर route path equal to slash element equal to layout. Question is, what does this layout component look like? I don't know. We'll find out. Function layout. Let me return div hi there over here. And let's see what appears here. Do I see a hi there? I do see a hi there. This is totally not what I was expecting it to do. Layouts in React. Let me Google this for a second, or someone can tell me. React layouts in React Router DOM. I sort of assumed this, did not test this. Okay, if you wrap all of these routes inside another, actually, it might be something like this. Let's do this thing. Nah, this isn't it. React layouts. What does this do over here? Let me open comments. Who will help me out here? Also take a small bounty. Outlet. Oh, this is called outlet. There's something else. All right. Let's see what outlets are. But before that, let's see if someone figured out routing as well. Sorry, someone figured out layout as well. Routes, route layout, index element equal landing page. I don't know if that is layouts either. Maybe there is no standard way to do layouts, and it's the only way to do it is the way I did. But anyone else know how to do layouts? This is an outlet, I get it. A lot of people are telling this is an outlet. What is a layout though? Like how can you do, or we can just read about outlets also. Let's see. All right, let's see. This is going to be learning for me as well. I have not used outlets in React Router DOM before. An outlet should be used in a parent route to render the child elements. This allows nesting UI to show up when child routes are rendered. That is sort of what we want. If the parent route matches exactly, it will render a child index route, or nothing if there is no child index route. Oh, was it this then? Let's see. Now let's see. I get it now. You don't write children over here. You write outlet, similar to slots in this thing. There you go. Thank you, sir. So that does still do layouts, but if you have gone through React Native, you have to specifically put like a slot component over there कि यहाँ पे render करना बच्चों को. The rest of the routes should render over here. Similarly, here you have to render an outlet. Who was the first person to tell me this? Few people told, but it was a race against time, I'm sure. But Manadilix XD, I think it deserves like a $25 bounty. So $25 bounty. Thank you for letting me know. Outlet, अब समझ आया सबको कि नहीं समझ आया? जिसको नहीं समझ आया, मैंने भी फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल से ही सीखा है. I also learned it from first principles right now. What is happening? Okay, any time, now what is the path variable here though? It means anything that starts with slash, I would assume, but we can check. Anything that starts with slash, I'm assuming, we will Google very soon. Anything that starts with slash, उसको इस layout में wrap कर देना. The actual component should be wrapped inside the layout. How should it be wrapped? Okay, there is a div. You first have the header over here, let's say. Then you have the actual component to render. Then you have a footer. So what does this outlet component do? Here, whenever you are creating like a super route of all of these sub routes, तो सबसे पहले तो ये render होगा. Header will render. Then जहाँ पे भी आपने outlet लिखा है, wherever you have rendered this outlet component, that is where this guy will render, or this guy will render, or this guy will render based on what page you are on. And then the footer will render. So can I move all of these links, my header, over here? What have I done? Moved the header over here, written a footer at the end. And if I refresh now, it looks very ugly. I can also add some styles so it looks better. Okay, height 100 VH, and then give the outlet a height of 90 VH. That way, the footer comes at the end of the screen. What did I do? Yaar, ye raha mera header. This is my header. This is the main area that will take 90% of the height of the window. What does 90 VH mean? 90% of the height of the window. And then the footer. So if you look at this, what does it render? Hello? Oh, thank you. We're at 5%. Sorry, about to do it. Header, the contents, footer. So do we have something like Allen? What does Allen have? It has a header, the main content that is at least 100% of the width or 90% of the width, and then the footer. Same thing we have. Header, main content, and then the footer. I should charge. But do we understand this? Do we understand layouts in React, more specifically React Router DOM? And how can you? We probably need to Google this first, or someone tell me in comments. Let's do a quick poll. Until then, let me attach my charger. ये नहीं समझ आया. 74% understood this. That is totally fine. Let's try it one more time. सबसे पहले तो मैं पाथ देख लूँ क्या है. I think I know what this is, but I could be wrong. Yeah, we need to figure out what the path variable here is as well. Google everyone who understood, but everyone who did not understand. This was my original. I'm recapping everything. This is my original single page application जिसमें I have routing working perfectly. ये रहे routes. This route renders this component, this route renders this component, so on and so forth. If I refresh, seems to work as well. Let me put this header back over here. This is my header. These are my routes. I am rendering 4 routes right now. One on this endpoint, this endpoint, this endpoint, and this is a catch-all. Catches all the endpoints. If I go here, as I navigate, everything works fine. I have a topper, some content in the middle, a footer. Now, I said there is another way to do it. Rather than doing this, because here there is no easy place to look at कि ये रहा मेरा layout. The person has to figure out कि अच्छा browser router यहाँ header है, okay, and अच्छा यहाँ जाके footer है. What if there was a component that we created called layout? This is what the layout of my application is. I want its height to be 100% of the height. That is what 100 VH means. It means if this much is 1000 pixels, so it means 1000 pixels. If I make it smaller, then 100 VH would mean 800 pixels, 700 pixels. So think of this as the current height of my width of my window. I say total height इतनी होनी चाहिए जिसमें से header will render over here. I can paste this as such, or I can create a header component where we return the 3 links. This is my header component. I can render the header component over here सबसे पहले. Then I say कि यार 90% height लेगा the rest of the stuff. What is this outlet? कि यार जो भी render हो रहा है ये या ये, whatever is rendering amongst these 4 is what will appear in the center of the screen in the 90% height, and then I have a footer at the end. If I save this and refresh, what did I miss? I did not. I have just defined the component right now. To wrap these routes inside my layout, I will first have to create another route and wrap all of my routes inside that parent route over here. This is my parent route. इसके अंदर I have wrapped all of my 4 routes. अब क्या होगा? सबसे पहले layout would render. सबसे पहले layout would render. It will give it a total height of whatever 100%. It will render the header. Then it will render a div कि 90% height तुम्हारी है. And this outlet means कि यार या तो this will come over here या फिर this will come over here or this will come over here based on what page you are on. And then finally the footer is written over here. So if I refresh now, header 90% of the height is taken by the main area, footer. Let me add some colors. I will say कि the main area का background color is going to be red. So can you see the main area's background color is red, header is white, footer is also white. If I want, I can give the total window a background color of green, let's say. तो ये green रह गया. The main area is red, the footer is also green. Oh, see daisy. So do we understand layouts, or more specific, layouts in React Router DOM? Can you still do it without it? You can. But I mean, there can be multiple reasons to use a layout rather than, rendering the header here directly. One of them is कि you can clearly see the layout. कभी भी change करना है यहाँ आके कर दो. This is going to be our main application. And let's change the color to whatever, black, and that appears over here. You can do the same thing here as well. This is just cleaner to look at, even though it might not feel cleaner. It might feel कि ये तो कितना complicated हो गया. This is very complicated. But as you write React, you would prefer कि यार एक component हो जहाँ पे ये सब लिखा हो. All the layout logic should be in a separate component and the real logic should be separate. So do we understand this now? Let's do another poll. Do we understand what did we learn here? Layouts in React next. Okay, great. One assignment for you, which even I don't know the answer. I will also Google only. What is this path variable? What happens when I change this path variable? Figure it out. Let me know at the end of the class. All right. Done with routing in React. This is how you create a very complicated React routing, React application as well. In the future, whatever big application you create, the top level file would look something like this only. Now, some people add optimizations here. They define routes separately. Okay? Const routes equal to an array, जहाँ पे path is this thing and element is this thing. They define first their custom array at the top, and यहाँ पे they just iterate over that array so that whenever you want to introduce a new route, you will just add another element over here. So in some code bases, you will see a array at the top that says routes that looks something like this. You can go with this approach also, or you can go with this approach. यहाँ पे if you want to introduce a new page, you will have to do this and add the new page route and component. Here, you will have to just introduce another element over here. Okay, this is my path and this is my element, so on and so forth. All right. Basically, in some code bases, you will see routes like here. Don't get overwhelmed. ये अंत में there will be a for loop over here that will be iterating over this object and rendering all of these routes individually. Cool. That's routing. And that's all I had for routing as well. The next step was building a website. Can you guys try to build it? We have built the VS Code website. We know how to write CSS. And now we understand navigation as well. So can you try to build some pages of this allen.in website? I'm not saying you will get hired here. Probably not the best metric की landing page बना सकता है. But good thing to practice out and tweet out. You never know. So first you have to learn how to write the CSS. Someone already did it, by the way. They tweeted day before yesterday. In the offline video, they saw this and already made this. Kudos. Great work. Similarly, can you try to create this and, add navigation styles, so on and so forth. Good assignment to do. If you need, not if you need, I'll probably, do it myself as well. If I don't do it, I'll get someone else to do it. But try to code it yourself. Not too difficult to build an application like this. Like the CSS is fairly simple. Uses grids over here, and, navigation we already understand. Cool. Can we get into, first we have to learn useref before we can get into custom hooks. We're at 9. I think we can understand useref as well, although you will get overwhelmed if we use useref or, learn useref. Let's go with useref first. It will probably take us 20 minutes to half an hour to do this. The last part is actually much more simpler. But one of these hooks, specifically usePrev, actually uses useref, which is why useref is good to know. Useref has two use cases. One of them is easy to understand. One of them is a little hard to understand. So let's understand both of these use cases of useref in React. What is useref? Breather लेना है, 2-minute breather. Look at Q&A, then we will start. ठीक है, very small 2-minute breather. The next two things we are doing is useref and custom hooks. पानी पुनी पी लो, mess जाने चले जाओ. Only the first set page title is going to be called, thus resulting too many updates would be cycling the first set page title, update the state rendering. What is this written, Pranjali? Base route path changes. Oh yes, of course it is that. Of course it is that. This represents कि यार, for example, यहाँ पे मुझे need डाल देना चाहिए था. This represents कि /neat/online coaching will be rendering this. /neat/online coaching 12 will be rendering this. So on and so forth. So now if I look at it, that's the base path. That makes a lot of sense. Localhost colon 5173/neat / this thing. That is, seems like that is not the case. Let's see. We're taking a small 2-minute break, then we will restart. The absolute route, this thing, nested in the path is not valid. Oh, you have to rewrite it again here. Yeah, that is it. This will restrict also. पहले मुझे लगा था कि यहाँ पे /neat if you put, you don't have to put /neat over here. But what it does is, if you have put /neat over here, you can't have a random route over here. If you do, it crashes for you. But if all of these routes have /neat, so it restricts what all routes can you have here. Is that the only use case? If not, let me know. All right, that was a good learning. Q&A, just 30 more seconds, then we'll start. Security risk with 0.00 in MongoDB, how to fix it? Make sure it is only accessible by a EC2 machine or whatever VM you have. So whatever server you have, uski public IP lo, put that in database. That way, your database is only accessible to your EC2 machine. If someone hacks your EC2 machine, they can reach your database. Otherwise, they cannot. Why to use path in parent route? Just use a /. Is there an advantage this way? Why to use path in parent route? You mean this guy right here? Well, there is one advantage. You can't even by mistake add another route that, doesn't start with /neat. So it will help you maintain consistency. If this layout is only meant for pages that start with /neat, it will ensure that, aap galti se bhi you can't put a bad route over here. That is one thing I can think of. What is outlet doing? Please explain once again. Very quick, 20 second. This outlet means कि जो भी एक component है that is going to eventually render. It could be this, it could be this, it could be this. Whatever amongst these is going to eventually render, वो यहाँ आएगा. Outlet means कि this is the place where this component or this component or this component would eventually render. और हमने क्या लिखा है कि यार header होना चाहिए पहले, footer होना चाहिए बाद में, इसकी height कम से कम 90 width होनी चाहिए, its height should at least be this much, then this should render or this should render. That is what we have written. Cool. All right. Let's get into useref. Let me clean my project. You can clean it as well to, work with some simpler code next. One more thing I forgot to share. All right. Sorry about that. Reshare screen. Let's understand useref next. What is useref? In React, useref is another hook. Use state we have understood. Use effect we have understood. The third one is useref. That provides a way to create a reference to a value or to a DOM element. It lets you do two things. It lets you create a reference to a DOM element, how you would use it most of the times, or to a value. This second use case is a little hard to digest. This first use case is slightly easier. It lets you create a reference to a DOM element that persists across renders, but does not trigger a re-render when the value changes. Very complicated statement. Dheere dheere, let's try to understand. The key characteristics of useref is that it is persistent across re-renders and no re-render on changing. We'll get to these properties. Let's try to code it first. Let's try to implement it first. Here is a problem statement. Let's say there is a div written over here. Div id equal to, or a better one might be, an input box is here. Type equal to text. And then there is another input box. And then there is a button. Submit. Something like this. A simple sign up form you have. Okay? You have a simple sign up form. This code hopefully we look at and we understand. Some text, 2 input elements and a button. If I see this on the website, what do I see? I see a simple sign up page. Now let's say I tell you that when the user clicks on submit button and they don't have any content over here, I want the cursor to go here directly. I want मैं इस पे click करूँ, when I click on this, and if this thing is empty, it should get focused. This input element should get focused. The cursor should reach here automatically. How would you do that? सबसे पहले तो you need to understand how can you focus an input element. The answer is fetch that input element. I repeat, fetch that input element, document.get element by id. Let's say, let me give this an id name, document.get element by id name dot focus. You can call the focus function on this input element so that the cursor reaches here. Let me press enter. अब वो दिख नहीं रहा है because I'm here. You don't see the cursor reach over here because I'm over here. But let me, because my mouse is on the console. So my mouse is over here, so it will not reach, the cursor will not reach over here. But let me put this inside a set timeout. Window dot set timeout. After 3 seconds, focus on the input element. Enter and let me click over here. 1, 2, 3, nothing happened. Oh, there you go. Did you see the cursor reached here automatically? It did not happen when I was typing it over here and pressing enter because I am in the console right now. The website isn't active, so it will not automatically reach here. But when I did it after 3 seconds, and in those 3 seconds I clicked over here, then after 3 seconds, as you can see, the focus reached over here. So given you already know this, how will you write the code over here? Okay, when the user clicks on the button, this thing gets focused. The first input element gets focused. Harkirat, I will write something like this. Button on click equal to focus on input. I will define a function over here where I will write the same thing that was written in the console. यहाँ पे क्या लिखा था? Document.getElement by id name.focus. So very simple. I got the DOM element. I called focus on it. This should work. Whenever you click on this button, this function should get called. You can call dot focus over here. Let's see if it works. Refresh. Click on submit. Focus reached here. Click on submit. Focus reached here. So this might feel like an elegant way to implement this. कि हाँ हरकिरत, somehow we've been able to implement कि when you click on this, I was able to fetch the DOM element. The thing we are learning is what are various ways to fetch a DOM element. One is this, you can just call document.getElement by id name. This is one way, but this is usually not the right way. You don't want to get raw DOM elements, especially by id in React. You do DOM manipulation, you touch the DOM in normal HTML, CSS and JavaScript like we have until now. But when you are in React, you avoid as much as possible to get these elements raw by doing document.getElement by id. But if you have to do it, then this is one way to do it, the ugly way. The better way is to use refs. What is the better way? To use references to a DOM element. Create a variable that refers to the DOM element rather than doing a document.querySelector or document.getElement by id. This is where the use ref hook comes into the picture. If this is the element जिसकी आपको reference चाहिए, if this is the element whose reference you want, you define over here const ref equal to use ref. Just like we had done const a comma set a equal to use state. Just how we called this hook that returned an array and we destructured two values from it. What am I doing here? Const ref equal to use ref, the use ref hook. Here I want to create a reference. Reference to what? I want to create a reference to the input element over here. Let me call this something else. Let me call this input ref. Const input ref equal to use ref. And यहाँ पे I have said input reference equal to input ref. Two things I have done. Here I have used the use ref hook to get an input reference. Here I have said that this input element refers, or this more specifically this input ref will refer to this input DOM element. Here too complicated. 1 second, bear with me. Abhi tak how was I getting the DOM element like this? Document.getElement by ID name. You can still do that. Or you can simply use ref.current. What can you use? Ref.current. This will give you the same thing as this. What did the slides say? The slides said, in React, useRef is a hook that provides a way to create a reference to a value or a DOM element. We are trying to create a reference to this DOM element so that we don't use this document.getElement by ID approach to get the DOM element. We simply use ref.current. This will give me the same thing as this guy. And here I can call focus. So now if I refresh, click on submit. Of course, something breaks because I've called this ref, but it should be input ref. This is input ref, this is input ref, this is input ref. The attribute that you give over here, input, ye ref hona chahiye. This should be called ref. Just like we write ID equal to something, we write ref equal to whatever is the reference variable that you created. So now if I refresh, click on submit, notice focus comes over here. Submit, focus comes over here. Submit, focus comes over here. So this will contain the same value as this guy. If when you have defined the input element, remove the ID, we don't need it anymore. We can simply say input ref equal to this specific reference that we have created over here. Why is it useful? Through your journey of, interacting with DOM elements, this is one very specific use case where you can see कि इसके बिना तो काम ही नहीं चल पाएगा. You will either have to go with the second approach, but this second approach is very ugly. What if ये component हम दो बार render कर दे? What if the sign up component gets rendered twice? Then this will also have the ID of text. The thing below will also have the ID of text. I don't know what's happening here. Ravan is. I hope you guys can't hear it, but there's like some background noise. This will also have an ID. This will also have an ID. तो वो confuse हो जाएगा इनमें से कौन से पे जाऊँ मैं? Which one of these should I go to? If I render this app component twice, then this will also have an ID. The one below will also have an ID. So when you do document.getElement by ID, it will go to the first one, even though there is the second one that you want to access. That is why you shouldn't do this. What you should do is use references. That way, पहला component अपनी reference पे जाएगा, second component will go on its reference. That is the first way we use the use ref hook. Let's look at the slides as well. There are a few use cases I've written. The first one is focusing on an input box. This is one place where you might want to get a reference to a DOM element. Usually in React, we don't care. Rarely do you have to do DOM manipulations. But in this use case, you need to find the element and call focus on it, right? So here, define the input ref, define a function that calls inputref.current.focus. This is the reference. This dot current means कि इसकी current value क्या है? What is currently being stored in the reference? And then here I have done input ref equal to input ref. Input space ref equal to whatever is my variable name. I can name this whatever I want. Input ref, my input ref, Harkiyat input ref, whatever you think is relevant. Can we do a quick poll and see how is it going? Do we understand the first use case of references? 81%. Not great. Let me take you through the second use case of references, and we will most probably do custom hooks tomorrow because I'll end it at 9:30 and then answer questions and try to help the other people out. Custom hooks we can do tomorrow along with some other things. If you want to run ahead, this and this were the exact questions asked in Zepto to Satyam. This is just my fun flavor on it कि अगर ये बना ही लिया है, if you have made this, try making this as well. So if you want to do it yourself, feel free to do it and skip the next 1 hour from tomorrow's class. Let's go through one more use case of useref and then I will answer more doubts over here since some people are confused. Rightfully so, useref is slightly hard to digest. All right. I have used this for one use case abhi tak. But what was written originally? In React, useref is a hook that provides a way to create a reference to a value or a DOM element. Have we created a reference to a DOM element? Yes, Harkirat. Have we created a reference to a value right now? No. Harkirat, what is a value? A number. 1, 2, 3. These are values or a string. Ramanjit or whatever name. Anything that is not a DOM element, basically an array, number, integer, is something you can store in a reference. Why would you want to store it? Why, Harkirat, why can I not store it in a state variable? Why can I not simply do const value comma set value equal to use state Raman? I will simply use this and update my value using this. Yes. But whenever you update a value using set value, then the whole component re-renders. ये हमें समझ आता है? Whenever I call set value, whenever I update the value, component re-renders. What if you don't want the component to re-render? कि आपको एक value चाहिए that you can update, but you don't want the component to re-render when it updates. अब ये बहुत important weird use case है which you will understand later कि oh that is why it is useful. But what does useref let you do? It lets you create a reference to a value such that when you change the value, the component does not re-render. It lets you create a reference to a value such that when you change the value, component does not re-render. Harkirat, तो मैं ये नहीं कर सकता. Can I not write const value equal to 1? This is a variable. This stores a value. This, whenever I change this value, let's say यहाँ पे I set value equal to 2 and let me make this let. Harkirat, then over here, you said when you update this normal variables, component does not re-render. So why do I need useref? ये भी तो काम कर जाएगा. Sort of. This, you might think this works, but this will lead to a bunch of problems. So there are 3 ways to define variables in React. Either define it as a state variable, const value comma set value equal to use state 1. Define it as a raw variable, something like this, and then define it using useref, const value ref equal to useref. When would you use this, Harkirat? When would you use this? When would you use this? We'll come to each one of these. This you will rarely use. Rarely will you create a raw variable inside your component. We'll get to why. But ये तो usually आप बहुत कम करते हो. Rarely do you do this. You either do this or you do this. Let's understand why do you use this. Let's look at it from a use case only. Scroll to bottom is again another DOM use case. This one is good. Clock with start and stop functionality. This is a great use case कि अगर ये बनाना है आपको तो you can build it without references also, but you should build it with references. Let's understand what the problem statement is. Problem statement is, अरे photo नहीं है. The problem statement is you have to build a clock with a start and a stop button. You want a start button, a stop button. When you start, clock starts, you can see it go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it stops at 5. When it starts, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so on and so forth. So that is what we want to build. How will you build it? Let's get rid of everything. Let's try to see, can you build it using the first approach? Can you build it using the second approach? Can you build it using the third approach? And why The third approach is the best approach to build it when it comes to performance. Let me get rid of everything over here. सब हटा देते. Empty app component. We are building a clock. What are we building? A clock with a start and stop button. This is what we're building. We're trying to build it in the most optimum way. How would you create it? Harkirat, first I would define a state variable. Current count, comma set current count equal to use state 0. The clock will start from 0, Harkirat. Let me return a div where I render the current count. Now hopefully this though is straightforward to look at, nothing complicated over here. If I look at it, 0 is rendered over here. When I change the state variable to be initialized with 1, 1 is what I see over here. Now what do I want? I want a button. And when I click on this button, I want the clock to start. Let me put this in the next tab. Start button and a stop button. When I click on start, I want the clock to start. When I click on stop, I want the clock to stop. How would you do it? Harkirat, I will define a function. Button on click equal to start clock. Function start clock. Here, I will start an interval. I will start a clock. Set interval function. Every 1 second, set current count to be count plus 1. अब ये जिनको नहीं समझ आया, if you did not understand what I've written over here, you should go back to the live and the offline videos. We have discussed the same use case. When we were learning use effect, we have learned the exact same use case of how you can start a clock. This function, now when I call this function, what will happen? A clock will start. Let's see, does that happen? Click on start. Click on start. 1, 2, 3. The clock has started. We are good to go. How do you stop the clock? Where will you store the interval variable? सबसे पहले, do we understand कि if you want to start a clock ever, I repeat, if you ever want to start a clock, you call the set interval function. Let's say every 5 seconds, we want console.log high to get printed. Do we understand this syntax? Set interval में the first argument is a function कि what should run every 5 seconds. And I've said this should get logged every 5 seconds. But this also returns you a variable. Set interval returns you a variable. Whenever you do this function call, this is just a function. You call this function. Its first argument is also a function. Its second argument is a number. When you call this, it returns you a variable. Logging will start now. After 5 seconds, high gets logged. After more 5 seconds, high gets logged. How do I stop the clock? You have to call, let's inspect the timer variable here. The timer variable says 4. If I want to stop this clock that is running, I have to call clear interval with the timer variable. When I call clear interval with the timer variable, that clears that interval, that removes that clock is no longer running. So this is how you start a clock, by calling set interval. It returns you a variable. Whenever you call clear interval by the same variable, the clock will stop. यहाँ पे I have started a clock. It will return me a value. Where should I store this value? If I store it over here, it will get lost. If I store it over here, it will get lost in oblivion. I can't define another on-click handler like stop clock, where I can say clear interval. What do I pass inside? I can't get this variable over here, right? I can't get this variable over here, which is why we need to figure out isko kahan dale. Where should we store this so that it appears over here? Harkirat, do this. Let timer equal to 0 and यहाँ पे just update that variable Harkirat. This will work. let timer equal to 0. यहाँ पे I update timer to be that specific set interval call. यहाँ पे I can call clear interval timer. This is the first approach where we are using a raw variable. We are not using a state variable. We are not using useRef. We are using a raw variable. Do you already know why this is wrong? This is wrong for sure. Let's try it out. Let's see. यहाँ पे timer is declared as 0. Whenever I click on start clock, the value of timer updates. Whenever I click on stop clock, it should get cleared. But does it work? Let's see. If I refresh, start. Has the clock started? Clock has started. When I click on stop, does the clock stop? It does not stop. Why is the clock not stopping? Because ये जो आपने जैसे वेरिएबल डिफाइन किया है ना, the variable that you have defined like this, every time the component re-renders, I repeat, every time the component re-renders, timer will get reinitialized. If you remember, the reason we used useState was because कितने भी re-renders हो जाएं, doesn't matter how many times the component re-renders, this value is guarded from that re-render. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये overwrite हो जाती है, but this value does get overridden. That is why if you remember DevTools in React, we have covered it in the offline video. If you install React DevTools, you can go to the wrong browser. In Chrome, I have this extension called React DevTools. You should install it. If you have it installed, you click on inspect. You click on components, settings, and highlight updates when component renders. What did I do? Went to the components tab here and checked this on. Now when I start the clock, you will notice a box appears every time a re-render is happening. Every time a re-render is happening, these React DevTools tell you कि ये render हुआ फिर से. What does render हुआ फिर से mean? What does it mean for it to re-render? It means कि this function got called again. This function that we have, the app function, got called again. And if this function gets called, what would happen? This line of code would do nothing. But this line of code will reinitialize timer to 0. तो यहाँ पे timer फिर से 0 बन जाएगा. And now, यहाँ पे अगर आप clear interval call करोगे, you will call it on 0. This value will get overridden. Only for 1 second, सिर्फ 1 second के लिए इसकी value 1 रहेगी या जो भी थी वो रहेगी. Whatever this function returns, it will remain that value only for a second. After 1 second, this will get called. This will re-render the component, which will override the value. So if I click on start, exactly it was right, but now timer is again 0. Let me log timer over here and show you. In the stop clock function, I am logging timer. When I click on stop, notice what gets logged? 0 gets logged because timer gets reinitialized on every render. That is why you rarely use raw variables like these in React. ऐसे तो variables define ही नहीं करने चाहिए. Either you define them like this or you define them using the useRef hook. If you are defining it like this, तो remember कि ये सिर्फ इस render के लिए relevant रहेगा. This timer variable will only be relevant for the current render. As soon as the component re-renders, as soon as there is a box over here, that variable will reinitialize to 0, 1, whatever is the value over here. So rarely will you use these raw variables. There are some use cases. You might run a for loop, calculate some sum, for example, over here, sum from 1 to 10. Then you might create a local variable. But that variable will only be that value for that render. उसको आप ऐसे change करोगे अगर. If you change that variable like this, that change will get overridden जब re-render होगा, whenever the component re-renders. Let's do a poll. Do we understand why this is a bad approach? Why declaring a timer like this, a raw variable, is a bad approach? Do we understand that? We understand this. Great. 90%. So what is the other approach you will take? You will define a state variable. कि हरकीरत ऐसे नहीं, इसको ऐसे define करते हैं. Const timer, set timer equal to use state 0. And यहाँ पे whatever value I get, I will call set timer with that value. Let's do like this, sir. Now this will work because now this is a state variable. And if this is a state variable, re-render में ये guarded रहता है. This doesn't change during a re-render. So hopefully now this timer variable will not get overridden in the re-render. Let's see. Start, it's re-rendering. Stop, it stopped. What is the value of timer that got logged? 36. So just replacing let timer equal to 0 with a state variable definition fixed everything. This is great. Timer is defined over here. Set timer value to when you start the clock. Whenever you're stopping the clock, timer is not 0. Timer is whatever you value you set it to. Because in every re-render, it is not getting reinitialized to 0. Use_state is guarding that. But what is the problem in this approach? Why is this a bad approach? Who will tell me in comments? Why is this approach bad? इसमें क्या कमी है? This is the raw thing you would do when double re-render. You can't. A lot of answers. Let's see. Exactly. That's the best one. A lot of people. Re-rendering is the right answer. It will do one extra re-render. That is the only. There's not too much performance downside to this. But technically, this is the worst approach. Why? Because what happens when I start the clock? Only a clock has started. 1 second के बाद app should re-render. The app component should re-render after 1 second. But since I've called set timer, so it will immediately re-render. एक बारी को उसको immediately re-render करना पड़ेगा to update this variable. Am I using this variable somewhere? Re-render कब करना चाहिए? When should you re-render a component? When that variable is being shown on the DOM. अगर आप उसको यहाँ दिखा रहे हो तो it makes sense कि भाई re-render हो गया है, change हो गया है, update the value over here. But इस केस में set timer, we just want to store it somewhere. We just want a reference to it कि भाई पड़ा रहे वहाँ, change मत होइयो. Don't change across re-render, stay there. But we are not using this timer variable in the HTML. अगर हम इसको यहाँ यूज ही नहीं कर रहे हैं तो फिर re-render क्यों करना? Why are we re-rendering it? We get an extra re-render when I click on this button. So if I refresh this and click on start, as soon as I click on start, you will see a box appear over here. Can you see a box? After every second there is a box because the current count variable is updating. But immediately also there is a box because the timer variable is updating. A re-render is a great thing अगर अंदर का content change हुआ हो. If the content inside is changed, sure, re-render, there is no way around it. But अगर content same ही है, when I click on the button, HTML is exactly the same. When I click on it, HTML doesn't change. Then why are we extra re-rendering? You should minimize the number of re-renders in your application. The more the re-rendering, the lesser optimal your application is. So this is where references will come into the picture. What was the definition of references? In React, useref is a hook that provides a way to create a reference to a value that persists across renders but does not trigger a re-render. यही तो चाहिए हमें. Something that persists across re-renders but उसको खुद change करो तो it doesn't re-render the component. What was the problem with let timer equal to 0? This wasn't persisting across re-renders. This was reinitializing across re-renders. What was the problem over here? It was re-rendering the component when the timer variable was being changed. But if I do this const timer equal to useref, क्या एक reference बना दो. And here, rather than calling set timer to value, I say timer.current equal to value. अगर मैं ये ले देता हूँ, slightly more complicated syntax. This value will persist across re-renders. Whenever a re-render happens, this timer variable will not get reinitialized. This timer variable will not get reinitialized to 0. Its value won't change. But this will also not trigger a re-render. This will not trigger a re-render. तो आपका पहला render बच जाएगा. Basically anything you don't want rendered on the screen, right? Any value that you want to store, जो आपको यहाँ नहीं डालनी है finally, is something you should store in references. That is when you use references to store values. जब आपको you want something to persist across re-renders, but you don't want it to re-render the component itself. It is a good middle ground between raw variables and use state. It is a good middle ground between raw variables and use state. Now if I refresh, Initially I see nothing, click on start, no re-render happened. After 1 second, re-render started to happen. If I click on stop, it does stop. The current value here is 34. The only thing I've missed is I have to call timer dot current. Okay, this is the current value of the ref. This is the current value of the reference. इसमें 34 stored होगा. What did I do? Timer dot current equal to value. Here what am I using? Timer dot current. Cool. If I refresh, start, it starts the clock. Stop, it stops the clock. That is why you use ref to store values. That is all we had for today. Is there another example over here? Here is another example if you want to try. To use references to store DOM elements, scroll to bottom. Okay, read through it. It's like pretty understandable. Whenever you add messages, you get scroll to the bottom of the message. If you're ever sending your friend a message, आप message भेजते हो, message pop आता है, and then you get scroll down. Same thing happens over here. That is all we had. Now I'm going to answer some questions. Most probably I would assume around useref and references. Tomorrow we will learn about custom hooks. How can you create one? Some interview questions, and then probably some more things. Maybe we can start the context API tomorrow. If not tomorrow, offline videos will be on context API. Probably makes sense to be offline videos. Again, they'll be very slightly jarring, so makes sense for it to be an offline video. Great guys, that's all I had. Happy Dashera to everyone. If you understood everything, now is your cue. Feel free to enjoy with your family, have some sweets, send some to the office as well. And for everyone else, if you have any doubts, I'm here, happy to answer questions. Alrighty. Great. Where does useref store the time.current.value? What do you mean, where does it store? It gets stored somewhere in the React context. And React understands कि अगर आपने useref use किया है, React understands that the fuck is happening here. React understands that if you have used useref, तो मैं हर re-render में इसको change नहीं करूँगा. I will not re-initialize this in every re-render. That is a good question actually. Where exactly does it get stored? We can look at the code base and understand. There's this guy who's from cohort 1 who used to contribute to React. He'll probably answer this like this, or So Akash, remind me to talk to him, and happy to do a class that takes you through the internals of React. Can you get the same input ref to 2 elements? And if yes, no, you can't have the same reference to 2 elements. You will have to create 2 different refs. You can create const input 1 ref equal to useref, const input 2 ref equal to useref. You will define 2 variables, and यहाँ पे you will be like input ref equal to input 1 ref, and here you will be like input ref equal to input 2 ref. There you go. What is client side routing? Well, how are we doing routing right now? They're like, you will hear this very common, client side rendering, client side routing. What are we doing over here? कि यार client में ही logic है, browser के JavaScript में ही logic है. That is taking you from one page to another. The logic, when I go to this HTML page, go to the network tab, you will notice I get some HTML files, but along with them we get a bunch of these chunks dash something.js files. Is client code mein hi. Why is it client code? Because it came on the browser. This code came on the browser, and here only there is routing logic. कि अच्छा this page पे render this page पे render that. So what is this? This is client side rendering. Whenever you hear routing. Whenever you hear the term client side X, it means कि आपके browser में ही हो रहा है. You don't have to go to a server and fetch another route. You are routing it directly in the client. Someone asked about Super 30. Just ping Akash on OopsDZ on this thing. क्या कहते हैं 100x devs Twitter. Are you going to teach Redux? I want to in cohort 3. Like cohort 3, I want to usually we have only done recoil, but most probably it will happen. If we are very slow, then it will happen as an offline video, but it will happen. Why I started with 0 when we clicked again on an ongoing timer? You have a bug. I did not start with 0. Let's look at my code. In my code, when I click on start, it starts from 1. It doesn't start right now. What am I missing? Const, क्या था ref का नाम? Timer equal to useref. Start, it starts from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I click on stop, it stops at 5. Click on start, it restarts from 5. So you have a bug in your code base. What is that bug? Try to debug, or paste it in chat the next time. I'll help you debug. Notion docs. 3 people got into that company, by the way. The one that Satyam got into. Total 3 people got in there. One Satyam was mobile, React Native. One pure React engineer, even though उससे काम तो बहुत ज़्यादा करा रहे हो, media soup वगैरह. And third was a distributed systems engineer. So if you're looking for some motivation, here is my TLDR. There's a very big power law in these companies. If one refers, you find one company, that I've seen with other companies also, कि एक ही company में 3-4 लोग निकल जाते हैं. So here are 3 things if you want. And the smoothest interview was the distributed systems guy, because Golang बहुत कम लोगों को आती है, और Rust he knew. Golang was the expected stack. I think like a 5-minute interview and he got in. He was not the most highly compensated though, because he's like a student, 19 or something. But he was the smoothest interview. Like React में there are 10 interview questions that you can ask. Distributed system CEOs or CTOs को खुद ही नहीं आता होता. So as long as you have good projects, you're fine. All right. Currently I'm in 5th semester, tier 3 college in Kolkata. I'm learning MERN from your course. I have a relative of mine who is in the field of power apps, and he has 1 lakh a month job. He has multiple. What exactly is a power app? He's usually busy in his prime job, makes me do the freelancing jobs. Currently I'm working 5 projects. He's getting paid 1.5 lakhs for it. He's giving me 10k. What kind of relatives do you have, my friend? He's a relative, right? My question is, should I invest in my... Dekho, every stack has money. PHP has a lot of money. WordPress has a lot of money. I'm looking at this technology. ASP.NET has a lot of money. Azure has a lot of money. A lot of consult. Because a lot of this money flows, like I would say 50% of the jobs are consults के TCS, Wipro वगैरह. तो ये जिन कंपनी के लिए काम करते हैं उधर कुछ भी स्टैक होता है. तो you can learn, and doesn't matter what you have to learn, be it what the higher packages, if you're aiming for very high packages, that might be in a Python or a MERN or a Golang. But 1 lakh a month, if your relative is making, you should probably feel free to continue there. My question is, should MERN do freelancing project? Don't do them for 10k. That is not worth it for sure. कि तुम कुछ नया भी सीख रहे हो, and God knows what power apps are, and you're only getting 10k. So do it for 50k at least. If he's a relative, बोलो थोड़ा यार कि दे दे, and बाकी सब सही है. If you do both, then how do you manage time? Well, you have to have motivation कि भाई पैसा कमाना है. 10k is not a lot of money. If you want motivation, let me tell you, 10k से ज़्यादा तो whatever Momo's guy makes. So, and this is not your fault here. It's just you're getting underpriced. That to by a relative. So ask them कि हाँ do it, and that is all the motivation in the world you need. What do you do if I was in your place? Is a great question. I would ask a relative for more, and 10k. Even in college, I used to reject 10-15k. Not worth it. काम भी बहुत सबसे ज़्यादा ही कराते हैं for some reason. The slowest projects are the least paying projects are the most work. So I would or increase the salary, and साथ में I would do whatever where I feel कि job जल्दी लग जाएगी मेरी. Done. Highways bytecode exactly. It's like a dot class file in Java that you create to spit out the bytecode. It gives platform independency, or it's just no. It is very similar to the dot class file, which gives you platform independency, and you can run that bytecode on any VM that's running on any machine. Sorry, this is the class code from yesterday. And saying that you are bounded limited by a domain, you choose them. Choices are. Please review syllabus of blockchains. What is this? I use a KeyCon Q3 as the keyboard. What is this? Oh, specialized in blockchain. Yeah, I don't think you learn much here, if I'm being honest. Like, this is college. I'm assuming you're asking कि मैं इनमें से क्या लूँ as my elective or something. And I don't know what this is. They're all very faddy. I don't know if they'll learn a lot from any of these, considering कि college profs को क्या ही आता होगा ये. But if I had to choose, these are electives only, right? So I would choose the first one. Actually, I would choose the second one. This too seems like extremely basic stuff. So EL2 and EL3 is also very good. Polygon development. What is this? Metaverse development. ये पता नहीं है, थोड़ा faddy है. Blockchain healthcare is a little faddy. Advanced cryptocurrency forensic. Yeah, 2 and 3 are really good. 2 and 3 look like if they're teaching what they're telling, or the titles are right, then I would choose 2 and 3. Course selling website. I need one. Ours got hacked today, so not the worst idea to pitch me one. Anchor project. What's the question? I'm stuck with the Video Vision Banker project. I got the project struct and I'm using for a few instructions, but for some reason, it's not showing up in my ideal JSON. What is not showing up in your ideal? You're not able to generate the ideal, or some specific function is not appearing in your ideal. I'm using submit project and submit project to vet. I'm using submit project and what is this? Submit project and submit project to vet. Where is submit? And I've got the account attribute on it. I'm assuming you mean this when you said submit project to vet. If not, let me know. The strange thing is my user account is in the ideal is just fine, but the project is a MIA. What do you mean MIA? Sorry, what's the full form of MIA? I have tried rebuilding, checking errors, but no luck. Can you send me the actual commands you are running to compile the project? Let me just try it out locally on my side as well. I think I have Anchor. I could be wrong. Actually, this laptop might not have it. But send me the exact commands that you're using to compile the project. I'm using the default only. So I can try to look at this. Is interesting for me as well. What are you building? What is this? This is like a decentralized scores and vetters. Yeah, what is this? You're submitting what exactly? Owners, skills, projects, I would assume. But what projects? Let me go through all the questions. Let's read through this after that. Oh, oopsie daisy. Web3. Oh, very cool. I think I bookmarked this in the past. I've seen this. I know you, Bharat. And let's see. Let's look at some React basics, lecture codes to do. Let's look at Web3. Oh, this is not Web3. This is only. That's fine. What's the simplest thing here? Let's look at React only then. React basics, lecture notes, counter app, index.html. Yeah, pretty good. Lecture notes. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Your lecture notes is an HTML file. I would assume these are not lecture notes. These are like assignment solutions or something. To do application. Yeah, probably. Pretty good, man. I want to get it integrated. I don't think I want to. Let's see if we were able to post at least the Web3 notes. I asked Aryan to do it. Someone has written them, but I totally forgot if they're here. Show contents week 4. Oh, there are notes here. Cool. Well, some weeks. Yeah, most of them are missing here. Notes only till week 5 are there. But yeah, markdown notes might be a little difficult to integrate. I don't know what your purpose was to show you. I've seen it a few times. It looks good, but like, do you want us to integrate it? Do you want to work with us? Let me know. 100x devs Twitter message. Akash will get in touch. This is the app that you might like. Oh yeah, this is what I was looking for. Asked a few people to build it. Can't say the best one was built. Can I share a link on the internet so people can vote? What is this again? आज yesterday तो आपने फाइल ओपन करके लिंक नहीं खोला lol sir. No, that means let's see. अच्छा, this is A/B testing thumbnails. This isn't auto generating thumbnails. Sorry, this is something else. Yeah, is this on chain or what? This is good. Very hard to like build this as a product. But this seems like the YouTube video that I made, but you know, as in a Web2 product, is it? Watching on editing, team members can vote which one is better. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's like you know, team members would just talk on WhatsApp and realize they're using a platform. Sorry, let's open this to figure this out. All right, we'll do another round. Someone said Redux is an overkill and Recoil is better, probably. Let me see if there are any questions that I've missed without the Notion docs. Yeah, complete guidance. Should you please look at this? User F. Your thoughts on Dino? Bearish on it. I haven't tried. Something update came now. I haven't tried it. Let's see. I mean, I don't know. Was very bullish on it for a day and then they sort of lost the steam. Bun still has the steam. I think backward compatibility ke bina, if you're trying this, it'll be really hard to compete with, you know, Node.js. All right, few more Notion docs. This I answered. This I answered. This I will answer. We'll look at it. That one I answered. What is the difference between object style routing and create browse? So you can do two. There are two ways to do routing. One is, you know, you can do it like we did over here, router, and then यहाँ पे routes, and then यहाँ पे route path equal to x, and then element equal to whatever component. You can do this, or you can use the create whatever browser router function to do it as well. Just how, if you remember, we learned that components can return a div, or components can return something like this, react.create element div. So you can call a function, or you can render like an XML element. Both of them will do the same thing. Similarly, you can call create browser router, or if you're trying to create a different type of router. Hash router was the other one that I wanted to talk about. I forgot the name initially. So then you can call that function as well. Can we have 2 calls for Web3? One class is not enough. Yeah, we just need offline videos, if I'm being honest. I don't think another live class can happen anytime soon, unless web dev classes go down, which I don't know if people are okay for. But I think we've caught up to speed. I think Solana took a long time. ETH shouldn't take a long time. And then we're up to smart contracts, which is the meaty bit. So I think we should be fine. But let me know. I'll keep this open. One more round, guys. Anything else before we call it? On Monday we have Hacktoberfest. Do not participate. It is an anti-signal now. UI and Figma sessions. Keshav will take them. Don't worry. It will happen some week. Should probably learn from the best. Hey, guy. Oh, what is this? Oh, I think I answered that one. I'm struggling a bit on design. Yeah, Keshav will take a session. It'll be a learning for me as well. Is this an acquirable skill or not? Hopefully it is. If design is an acquirable skill, then that's a good thing. We'll know very soon. कौन सी कंपनी में लगे Golang my placement? लगी नहीं है, but this company's FamPay has Golang. Most IT startups, Razorpay, FamPay are now moving to Golang. Razorpay started from PHP, moved to Golang. These guys started from Python, are moving to Golang. So those are the 2 companies that I know of right now. Alrighty. Cool. A few more questions. Someone created basic routing. All right. Oh, that looks not great. Yeah, that doesn't look great. Very simple design, but routing looks good. Portfolio hard to review for me right now. What happened today wasn't good. Hope you. Oh yeah. I can't secure it. It's out of my hands, if I'm being honest. Like, we depend on someone else. I want to say that now is the time to bring some hacking course in Golang. Well, it's just the worst time in the world right now for me to do that. Nobody else says my additional stuff or what happened today. Yeah. I mean, this will almost always happen unless you are building a financial app. You have to discuss this on step. Like, that's why I wasn't angry at the people. It's fine. Like, happens in every company. And yeah, the other option is we move everything in-house, which, is a whole different long game. So we'll see. We might just convert it to an open company, in which case, everything anyways is public. We'll see. Alrighty. Experience including... I would do GSOC amongst the things. I think you said you're in the second year. Do DS on the sides doesn't really matter. Very, simple. One thing you have to do. Boy, that's a long one. You have 2 projects that you should build. Okay. I don't know how to make them scalable. Yeah. So here's another learning. Super 30 projects. Super 30 projects that we're building. Where first time in life I'm taking the other approach. Okay, we are first writing all the tests for it. Then writing, whatever a script that will load test it. Then writing the actual code. That number 1 defines a very nice spec for us. Okay, this is how you're supposed to write all the code. Similar in the end, doesn't matter what stack you use. And then number 2, since there is a load test, it will test things like agar ye phatega ki nahi, if you bombard it. So try this out. I am mildly bullish on this. Have you heard of test driven development? It's sort of like that. So if you want this, so first create the script that will load test, then start to write your code and see where things are wrong. Contributing to 100xs repositories, I wouldn't say it's high priority. it's one place I look at for referrals, but right now I'll also look at, super 30 people. So it will be I wouldn't say right now it has happened that most contributors, most referrals are happened from there. But for your own learning, if you're doing it for a referral, may or may not happen, is what all I'll say. But you should do it if you want to do it. Just maintain CPI. Not the worst thing in the world to have a good CGPA already created. Very nice. Let me use a different one. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Create that you're running ahead. ETH wallet adapter. Done. Web3 important question. On the Solana blockchain, do wallets owners have the ability to temporarily freeze or suspend? No, they don't have this authority. They can do wallet owners. Oh, wallet owners. You can freeze assets. I don't know what you mean when you say freeze transactions or suspend transactions. When you say wallet owners, what do you mean? Do you mean Phantom? Phantom will not do this. And if they do this, you can always migrate from Phantom to Backpack. So it is your private key that governs everything. So no front end, the front end can try to block you, but you can just move over to another front. If Paytm blocks you today, your UPI, you will go to Google Pay, right? Similarly, if one wallet does block you, you will go to another wallet, if that's what you meant. If you want to do this, then sometimes, one good thing that we had talked about a while back was locking assets. कि people are very finicky. ऊपर जा रहा होता है वो खरीदने लग जाते हैं, नीचे जा रहा होता है बेचने लग जाते हैं. तो to avoid this, you can let people lock assets. So that is one thing that these guys can do, but that's just smart contracts. There is no client side way to block assets. Are there any native Solana wallets that provide similar compatibilities to or a kill switch? There are kill switches, but they're for different things. For example, in Backpack, you can lock Mad Lads. What that does is similar to staking. You change the authority. One of the authorities, I forgot the name. Basically, you delegate the asset somewhere else. So you can't sell it anymore until you unlock it. So you can write smart contracts in which you are sending your asset so that, even if you try to sell, you can't in one step, but then you can sell in 2 steps. आप पहले उसको unlock कर दोगे, then you will sell it. So wallets probably shouldn't provide this. Wallets aren't the use case for this, but dApps, there can be a dApp that lets you, freeze your assets, lock your assets for a while, things like these. All right. I think I answered that one. Oh God, the worst video you have chosen, sir. Regex? No one knows regex. Only the founder does. I can create some simple regexes and show you, this regex, can you see it maps to these strings, something like that. But it's very hard to do regexes or, learn regexes. It's like learning every CSS tag. You Google when you need a regex. Okay, I want a regex for an email, and it gives you the regex you copied. You understand it a little bit, but doing regexes from scratch, understanding it, probably not. You can do it, but very low priority in your career journey. You will need to learn it. How can I build a lot of projects is the only way to do it. Ajax AK80 Pro key. Oh, I don't know. I haven't used it. And please make video on how to make beautiful UI. That will be taken by our guy Keshav. I think he's the best guy to do it. Looks pretty decent. I think I could be wrong, but I think Sujit uses this one. All right, Anchor project. I don't think I'll have the time for it if I'm being honest. Did you add instructions over here? I probably have to install Anchor also here, so it'll take me some time. So probably won't happen right now. You did, right? Anchor build and Anchor deploy. There we go. This is your full project. I want to do. I just don't have Anchor CLI right now, so I don't want to go through the steps of installing it. Let me bookmark this. Send your number to Analytics Dev's Twitter. Akash will connect me to you on WhatsApp. Then let's talk and try to debug it together. It'll be good for me also to see what you've done. All right, this is done. All right, I think we're out of questions now. Let me look at a few textual questions that were there. Notion docs are done. Here, Kirat, I need some guy. Okay, answered that one. Token launch pad with metadata. Akash, keep track of that. Do you mean NFTs or do you mean token? I thought we did token launch pad with metadata. I could be wrong. Make a note of this. Let me know. I think someone noted this yesterday also. Props का part skip हो गया है. Relationships in Mongo are coming hopefully next week. Props should be in the offline video. I think so. If not, let me know. And yeah, if not, let me know. I'll make a video on it. Can be Discord channel for interview question compilation? We should. There's a very nice Notion doc that this guy sent me, Satyam. So we should. Akash, make a note of that as well. Let's create a Discord channel where you can post interview questions. All right. Cool, guys. Because in the end, you get your interview based on your projects, but they ask you the randomest shit there. Okay, whatever, create the use brief hook, and then you're stuck making that. It's good to, it's become like lead code only. Okay? There are 10 standard questions that they ask. So, good to have them. With that, happy Vijay Dashmi. Happy Vijay Dashmi, folks. I thought that's Dashera. Is it tomorrow? Probably. So, happy Vijay Dashmi and happy Dashera. And it's the same. Great. So, happy both of them to you guys. Have a good night. I will see you guys tomorrow when we do some more React. Maybe start the context API. Good night, folks. Bye-bye.